Now, the reason is mostly aesthetic, but I also wanted to go with one of the absolute cheapest folding bikes that I could find that I didn't really care about destroying. So when you have a bike like this, I paid $125. Honestly, just for the frame alone, not necessarily the frame alone, but with the frame and the wheels, things like that, like, the important things like that. I planned on upgrading this the entire time before I had even bought it. I believe there was only one other folding bike online that I could find that was cheaper than this one. It was, I believe, like $90. But the reason I didn't go for that one, despite it even had disc brakes on it, it seemed like a pretty decent folding bike, and I was actually kind of surprised at the cheapness, at the affordability of it. But the reason I didn't go for that one is because the frame didn't really look how I wanted it to look. Again, we're going back to style, aesthetic. I want my bike to look good. It doesn't look great right now. It's just a standard black and white, right, with terrible paint on it. But we're going to do something about that in a little bit here. I'm not even really into the black and white look. It's okay. I don't dislike it. It looks kind of decent. I think a lot of people tend to actually like it, but it's just not really my thing. So looking at any folding bike under around $400, I was looking at kind of how they looked in terms of style, how they folded, because the folding part is pretty important for a folding bike. And despite this being a $100 bike, it doesn't mean that it folds terribly. It actually folds pretty well, in my opinion. I also looked really close at the product images to make sure that the bike had the proper mounting points, because there are a lot of folding bikes, especially when you're going super cheap. A lot of them don't have the proper places for a rear rack. They don't have anything for fenders or mud guards. And this one actually had everything, including a place for a bottle cage, which I think is pretty cool. And when you're going this cheap on a bike, it makes it really easy to decide to do certain upgrades with it. Let's say I had bought something like a Zizzo. It already comes pretty standard with decent things that I don't think I would have wanted to upgrade because it just wouldn't have made any sense monetarily. Just because those components are already of decent quality and I would have used them, that doesn't necessarily mean that I would have wanted them on the bike. So when you go with a bike this cheap, you basically get all these throwaway components, which, I'm not going to throw them away. I'll put them away and reuse them later. So I can take all these parts off the bike and just not feel bad about it whatsoever, because the very cheap price of the bike makes it really hard to complain about having to upgrade components. Honestly, I'm happy with just the shape of this frame. I guess I could summarize it by saying that I just wanted a cheap project bike that I could work on, learn a little bit more about bikes and bike mechanics, and just do general tinkering that I otherwise wouldn't have done with a more expensive bike. I'm less hesitant to work on this because of how cheap it is, and the good thing about buying parts is that all of these things that I'm getting are virtually compatible with anything else, as long as whatever bike I end up getting next doesn't use proprietary parts.